Real-Time 1960s presents Evening Report, a complete roundup of today's news with Joe Rubenstein.
Good evening. In Washington, President Kennedy takes on the AMA. In Vietnam, an American general's son is wounded. In Atlanta, Martin Luther King predicts the future. Marilyn Monroe is cheered at the Garden, Cassius Clay is booed at St. Nick's, and Rod Serling expands the Twilight Zone. Those are the headlines. The details after this message.
When a girl is reduced to the bare essentials, the essentials have to be near perfect. That's why swimwear knits of Crestline acrylic fiber can be a girl's best friend. They mold to the body, never let you down, in the water or out. Knits of Crestline are so soft next to the skin, you can feel the difference. Swimwear knits of Crestline, a product of Cyanamid.
On Sunday, President Kennedy made the case for health care for the aged through Social Security at a televised rally at Madison Square Garden. The president advocated passage of the King-Anderson bill to a crowd of 17,500 inside the garden and 2,500 outside, most of them senior citizens.
All the great revolutionary movements of the Franklin Roosevelt administration in the 30s we now take for granted. But I refuse to see us live on the accomplishments of another generation. Because what we are now talking about in our children's day will seem to be the ordinary business of government.
The president countered arguments by the American Medical Association, which is opposed to the bill.
Well, let's hear what some people say. First, we read that the AMA is against it, and they're entitled to be against it. Though I do question how many of those who speak so violently about it have read it. We do not cover doctors' bills here. We do not affect the freedom of choice. You can go to any doctor you want. We talk about his hospital bills, and that's an entirely different matter. And then I read that this bill will sap the individual self-reliance of Americans. I can't imagine anything better to sap someone's self-reliance than to be sick, alone, broke, or to have saved for a lifetime and put it out in a week, 2 weeks, a month, 2 months. I visited twice yesterday and once today, a hospital where doctors labor for a long time to visit my father. It isn't easy. It isn't easy. He can pay his bills, but otherwise I would be. And I'm not as well off as he is.
On Monday, the AMA struck back with its own television program. The association hired 200 stations for the presentation, the first such event in its history. The program was hosted by a Florida surgeon, Dr. Edward Annis, who spoke from an empty Madison Square Garden.
This King-Anderson bill is a cruel hoax and a delusion. It wastefully covers millions who do not need it. It heartlessly ignores millions who do need coverage. It is not true insurance. It will create an enormous and unpredictable burden on every working taxpayer. It offers sharply limited benefits. It will undercut and destroy the wholesome growth of private, voluntary insurance and prepayment health programs for the aged, which offer flexible benefits in the full range of an individual's needs. It will stand between the patient and his doctor. And it will serve as a forerunner of a different system of medicine for all Americans. If our government wants to move toward welfare state medicine, let them tell us so honestly.
At his press conference today, President Kennedy responded to the program and to the adversarial stance of the AMA.
Well, I read the statement, and I gathered they were opposed to it. The thing that, what I thought was remarkable was that the language was so similar to the language which the AMA used when it opposed and successfully defeated a proposal which President Eisenhower sent up a number of years ago to provide for reinsurance of private health schemes. I was on the committee, as a matter of fact, that heard it and supported the legislation. The AMA led the fight against it and defeated it. In addition, the AMA was one of the chief opponents of the Social Security system in the 30s. The words a cruel hoax were used against the Social Security system at that time as they're used today. There isn't anyone in the United States who will not have or who has not already had a case of a parent who is sick for a long period of time with a burden falling very heavily upon either them, on their savings, or upon their children. This bill includes provisions for payment of hospital bills, nursing care, outpatient care. It does not attempt to interfere in any way with the relationship between the doctor and the patient, and we have no plans to provide such legislation. The AMA may not support this bill, but I think the American people will, and I think more and more doctors are supporting it. And those who are opposed to Social Security should oppose this. But those who believe that Social Security has served this country well should support this because it's in that tradition.
In South Vietnam's Mekong Delta today, Colonel Frank B. Clay, a son of General Lucius Clay, President Kennedy's former advisor in Berlin, was one of 4 U.S. Army officers wounded when their helicopter, trying to block the escape of Viet Cong guerrillas, was hit by communist gunfire. The officers were part of a support mission with South Vietnamese troops in what was described as a major attack on the Viet Cong in the region south of Saigon. A .30 caliber bullet penetrated the nose of Colonel Clay's helicopter and shattered the instrument panel, spraying the inside of the aircraft with plexiglass splinters. The bullet hit the heel bone of Captain Robert F. Cornell Jr., and Colonel Clay was cut in the arm, leg, and neck. All 4 officers were treated and later released from a clinic at the Saigon airport in satisfactory condition. I'll have more news for you after this message.
And here it is, new Seal Test Berry Patch Ice Cream. Seal Test combines the goodness of all 3, red ripe raspberries, juicy blueberries, and luscious strawberries, plus that special Seal Test magic. Delicious. And you know what? You'll never keep the kids out of this berry patch, because Seal Test has put together the only berry patch in the world that gives you the wonderful flavors of all 3 at once. All the berry picking's been done for you. All you do is pick brand new Seal Test Berry Patch Ice Cream. Delicious.
Here again, Joe Rubenstein.
Dr. Martin Luther King is calling on President Kennedy to issue a second Emancipation Proclamation, an executive order banning all forms of segregation in this country, including every school district, by September of 1963. According to Assistant Attorney General Burke Marshall, more than 1,900 school districts in 17 southern and border states are still preventing integration of white and Negro children. This weekend, Dr. King was asked if he was seeing any progress in the struggle for racial equality.
Yes, I do. I definitely think many more people have a conscience about this matter, and I think even in the South, many white people are coming to see that segregation is wrong. We have made some meaningful strides over the last 10 years, and at least segregation is unconstitutional as declared by the highest court in the land, namely the Supreme Court. So the law of the land is integration rather than segregation. And this will inevitably break down the barriers of segregation as time goes on.
The 33-year-old minister was asked about President Kennedy's impact on civil rights.
Well, I would say on the whole, the Kennedy administration has expressed real concern, and the new administration has created a climate of concern for civil rights. I think there's no doubt about that, and the administration is generally friendly. I'm not saying that the president has done all that he could do. There is more that the president could do, but I think at least he understands the depths and dimensions of the problem, and he has done many things that were not done by predecessor administrations in this area.
Finally, Dr. King predicted a possible timeline for integration in this country.
I think within the next 10 years, we will see a desegregated South. That is to say, segregation as a legal system will not exist in most places, certainly urban areas in the South. When I think of true integration, which is certainly more subtle than desegregation in the sense that it involves attitudes, and people do this not merely because the law says it, but because it's natural and right. I think it will take longer. But I do feel that before the turn of the century, which is less than 40 years, we will see in America a completely integrated society.
Producer Rod Serling and the CBS network have reached an agreement under which Mr. Serling will produce a new series of 13 hour-long episodes of The Twilight Zone for next season. The expanded version of the show will begin airing in January of next year. Mr. Serling said he had received several thousand letters of protest after the announcement that the show, which debuted in 1959, would not be on the air next fall. In a recent interview, Mr. Serling was asked about a remark by TV producer Herbert Brodkin, who had said, quote, "Rod is either going to stay commercial or become a discerning artist, but not both," unquote.
I remember the quote. He gave it to Gilbert Milstein when Milstein was doing a profile on me in the New York Times. I didn't understand it at the time. I failed to achieve any degree of understanding in the ensuing years, which are 3 in number. I presume Herb means that inherently you cannot be commercial and artistic And this I have to reject. I don't think calling something commercial tags it with a kind of an odious suggestion that it stinks. If you say commercial means to be publicly acceptable, what's wrong with that? As long as you are not ashamed of anything you write, and I'm not ashamed of doing a television series. I could have done 30 or 40 film series over the past 5 years. I presume at least I've turned down that many, with great guarantees of cash, but I've turned them down because I didn't like them. I did not think they were quality, and God knows they were commercial. But I think innate in what Herb says is this suggestion made by many people that you can't have public acceptance and still be artistic. And as I say, I have to reject that.
In New York Saturday night, President Kennedy urged the election of a Congress this fall that would advance the administration's goals and programs. Mr. Kennedy's appeal was the climax of a fundraising birthday salute to the president at Madison Square Garden. Among the performers were Peggy Lee, Harry Belafonte, Ella Fitzgerald, Bobby Darin, and Marilyn Monroe, who was introduced by Peter Lawford, the president's brother-in-law. Mr. Lawford played on Miss Monroe's reputation for tardiness.
Mr. President, the late Marilyn Monroe.
The actress took the stage wrapped in a great bundle of white ermine fur. Upon reaching the microphone, she peeled off the furs to reveal a form-fitting flesh-colored dress with 2,500 rhinestones sewn into it. Then, she sang a special rendition of Happy Birthday to the president.
Happy birthday, Mr. President. Happy birthday to you.
She continued with a bit from the classic song Thanks for the Memory, for which she had written new lyrics specifically aimed at the president.
For all the things you've done, the battles that you've won, the way you deal with U.S. Steel and our problems by the ton, we thank you so much. Everybody, happy birthday!
Afterward, President Kennedy acknowledged Miss Monroe's quote-unquote sweet and wholesome performance.
I can now retire from politics after having had Happy Birthday sung to me in such a sweet, wholesome way.
Sports, right after this.
Mental illness is no longer hopeless. Many are now being saved. Help fight mental illness. Support your mental health association.
Cassius Clay will not be forced to leave the country under self-imposed exile. Before knocking out Billy Daniels Saturday night, Clay, in what's become a routine announcement, said he would exit the country by jet if he did not beat Daniels. It took 7 rounds, and it was tougher than Clay had expected, but travel agents looking for the fighter's business were disappointed once again. From the outset, the crowd at St. Nicholas Arena in New York made it very clear that they were pulling for Queen's product Billy Daniels to pull off an upset and silence the talkative Clay.
From St. Albans, Long Island, wearing black trunks, weighing 189, Billy Daniels. His opponent from Louisville, Kentucky, wearing white trunks, weighing 196, Cassius Clay.
Cassius gets a mixed reception.
As the contest commenced, announcer Don Dunphy observed Clay's assets as well as his idiosyncrasies.
Clay has tremendously fast hands. The speed of his hands have been compared to that of champion Floyd Patterson. It's risky business going around with your hands dangling at your sides, as Cassius says, but I guess he knows what he's doing.
From the opening bell, Clay did damage. A straight right hand in the first gave Daniels a bloody nose, and a right cross in the third opened a cut over his left eyebrow. As Cassius peppered away with right hand leads, the eye grew steadily worse. Despite that handicap and the quick pace set by Clay, the previously undefeated Daniels performed well. He hurt Clay with a right cross in the second and did it again in the fourth.
Clay's got the hands up a little higher now. Daniels has developed another cut near the left eye as if things weren't tough enough for him, but he's battling gamely in there.
In the seventh, referee Mark Kahn halted the bout on the advice of Commissioner Dr. Samuel Swetnick as Daniels' eye had begun to close.
And Clay continues undefeated, having won 14 in a row now. Daniels has won 16 and lost 1 by a TKO.
Afterward, Clay described the fight as a workout, adding, quote, "Daniels is game, but I'd have knocked him out if the referee didn't save him. I'm still the greatest," unquote. Daniels, who took 10 stitches to close his wounds, had a different view, saying, quote, "He's a fancy Dan, that kid. He's fast and takes a good punch, but he's not good when the going gets rough. A front runner, that's him. He's got a long way to go," unquote. The fight, initially planned for Madison Square Garden before it was commandeered for the president's birthday salute, will go down in history as the last significant bout to be held at St. Nick's, which is set to close next month. The property at the corner of 66th Street and Columbus Avenue will serve as a production center for ABC TV. And that, for this evening, completes our look at the latest news on this Wednesday, May 23rd, 1962. Thank you for joining us, and have a great day tomorrow.
This has been your Evening Report, a roundup of the latest news with Joe Rubenstein.